typical salesperson, you've got a million things running through your head at any given time. The importance of being present in a call with a customer or a prospect is critical, right? Like showing them that, hey, I'm fully attentive to who you are.
Write everything down. Think about the day that you have ahead of you. When you're structuring and planning your day, being really intentional about that. So you build in space in between. Most people just run from one to the next.
From an NLP perspective, are there things that I can do that would potentially lead the other person to feel more comfortable with me so they feel more open to talk?
So two things that stand out for me when you say that. One is,
in this episode, you're going to learn what is NLP and why should I care?
Well, another special guest we have today, we've got Hanako Anki from MindPilot. And this is one that I'm really interested in because I've heard of NLP. To be honest, I don't really understand what it is. I've got friends that have dabbled in it. So, from my own selfish perspective, Hannah, can you take us through what is NLP? And like Louis said, why should I care?
well, firstly, thank you both for having me here today. NLP is a really great topic to cover and I think very relevant, particularly for people in sales. So NLP is around understanding your thoughts, language, behaviours and our patterns. So understanding the way we structure our mental models and the way our behaviours follow. So yeah, NLP is basically understanding your thoughts, language and behaviours, and then understanding the mental models that we have. So essentially everything we do is a process. So through understanding that, we're able to work with people to help them make sense of their thoughts, their beliefs, their ways of thinking, and then tap into the cues around language and reframe some of those processes to help people achieve different and better behavioural outcomes.
Yeah, that's interesting. And how do you think, being in the world of sales and business, how can we tap into NLP to empower us and, and discover that self-mastery?
So I think I sort of see it from two perspectives. So one's around how do I manage myself and get or achieve self-mastery, and then the other piece is how do I develop some of the key skills around NLP to help me be an effective sales leader and facilitate more meaningful conversations and drive better outcomes. So I guess the first part for me is around managing myself. So everything that we do, think a little bit about the law of thermodynamics, but everything that we do, everyone that we interact with, we bring a sort of energetic impact. And so part of that is, I'm sure you've both had people, whether it's leaders, managers at work, or people that you've interacted with, or even a friend, where everything can be great and then they walk into the room and you can feel that maybe they're not in a good mood or they, like to talk about lots of different things, but we pick up on some of these cues. And so when we're working with people and in a sales context, often what happens is we're rushing from whatever we're thinking about in the morning to whatever we've, might be concerned about with the client or prospect, and then what we need to do for the rest of the day. So part of the self-mastery piece is understanding what's on my mind, planning ahead. So being able to really make sure that we can be fully present in the moment with the person that we're interacting with, thinking about what might be some of the challenges or opportunities that we can explore, and making sure that I'm calm, centered, so that when I am there with the person, I can be fully present and apply different levels of listening. So a big part of NLP is really being able to hold the space for the person you're interacting with and hear very deeply what they're saying. Being able to then influence them means you really need to understand. So there's a coaching component and a really deep listening piece that's really key to that.
So can we, I'm just going to, there you go.
Because whenever I find there's a good moment to have a dig at you, I'm going to take it. Right? So I hope you're listening to this because you're one of the most distracted people in meetings I've ever experienced.
Well, let's just go back, right? Because I think we just need to break it down in layman's terms. What does NLP, what's the actual definition of it?
So Neuro-Linguistic Programming.
Yeah.
So brain, language, behavioural programming.
Okay. And so you're a salesperson listening to this, and if you are kind of the typical salesperson, you've got a million things running through your head at any given time. Your phone's ringing, emails, you kind of...
Especially if you're on like a Zoom call, something like that, you got bings and this and that's happening behind the screen.
So especially, and I think this is really good learning, the importance of being present in a call with a customer or a prospect is critical, right? Like showing them that, hey, I'm fully attentive to who you are. I'm not distracted.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Can you talk us through some of the foundational techniques one person must do to just block everything else out and be quite focused in that interaction, leveraging some of the NLP techniques that you've mastered?
Some of the really simple things that you can do is planning and preparing the day before.
Okay.
So making sure that your own thoughts are clear. So write everything down. Think about the day that you have ahead of you the following day. So for me, I sit down, I write everything down. I think about all the conversations that I need to have. And then I think about the impact that I want to have for those people. But I make sure that anything that's on my mind, whether it's personal or professional, that it's all written down so it's not, in just floating around there. And then in the morning when I wake up, I visualize how I want my day to go. So one of the techniques that you can use is your thoughts or your feelings follow your thoughts, and then obviously your behaviors follow your feelings.
Yeah.
And, you have this continuous cycle. So if you wake up in the morning and you start to think about and visualize, so almost like you're watching TV, start visualizing how you want your day to go, how you want those interactions to go with people, you can start to create that before you leave the house. And so part of preparing to go and have these conversations is, if you've structured your day and you know the people and the conversations that you need to have, taking a couple of minutes before you go into each conversation and making sure that you are fully present in the moment. So wherever you are, be there. That might mean you completely park what's just happened, but sometimes we need to do it intentionally. So thinking about my breathing, have I slowed myself down, or am I just rushing and running from that meeting to this one? When we do that, we bring that with us.
Yeah.
And the person on the receiving end of that can feel that, and you come across as being rushed, you come across as being disorganized or flustered. And so for me, as the potential client for you, I want to make sure that you are really listening to me and that you're hearing what I have to say and that you're interested in my business, the challenges that I have. And therefore, the conversation that you're having with me is you're hearing what I'm saying. Yeah. So I think a really big part of it is stopping, being intentional about the impact that you want to have, how you want the person that you're interacting with to feel, and knowing there's this part around the different levels of listening, that we don't just listen with our ears, we listen with our eyes. To be an effective sales leader, that means when I'm sitting with you, I want to be able to be so fully focused on you and present that I am not just listening to the words, but I can see your body language. I can pick up on really subtle shifts in the way you move, or you might smile or look, you might look a little bit concerned, but we can pick up on those things when we're fully present. Yeah. When we're trying to manage messages or thinking about other things, we're distracted. We're not really there.
I'm really enjoying this actually, and it's given me some food for thought, but I just want to go back because, again, you're talking about going from one interaction to another and being really cognizant of the energy, right? And I love that Brian Tracy's, says sales is a transference of enthusiasm, right? And I've always loved that statement because selling, there's a lot of energy involved, yeah? And again, I want to just go back a step, because if I've been working on a deal, right, I'm not just structuring my whole day on one deal. So like you said, I've prepared the day before, I've got that mental picture of what my day is going to look like. And all of a sudden, half an hour before my next meeting, I'm in a great mood, I get that text or I get that email. Deal's not going through.
It shocks you.
And you're like...
Yeah, it rocks you.
And you weren't expecting it. You're kind of like, it was your sure thing. For some, they've already spent the commission, like if you think about it, that's the world of selling, right? Like a couple of days, it's the last day of the month and you're like, oh, it's taken your breath away. We've all had that feeling, yeah? Your stomach gets a little bit funny. Walk me through. How would you coach me through that situation so that I don't go into that next call and take that anxious energy into the next call, so that all of a sudden it becomes a domino effect that then affects my next deal?
So there's a couple of considerations. One would be, are you able to plan your day in a way where, you can avoid this, but sometimes you can't. So ideally, when you're structuring and planning your day, being really intentional about that, so you build in space in between. Most people just run from one to the next to the next, and they're often late from, So there's a crossover in all of those too. So when that doesn't happen, so I really firstly encourage people to do that. Make sure you've got 5 minutes in between each meeting where you can sit there, check in with yourself, ask yourself how you're feeling, what thoughts have you got, write anything down, take some breaths. And it sounds like a really simple practice, but just sitting, being aware of it, a couple of minutes is all it takes. Just take some deep breaths to try and regulate the nervous system. I would then write down, speak to somebody. Sometimes talking to someone can make it worse. So just recognizing that you're going to have to pick it up later, and know that this and every person that you interact with is important. So you've still got to be able to make the choice to sit there with them and give them the same option. We can, if you think about, and it's a bit of a coaching role, a self-coaching role, if you think about your thoughts and then the coach. So there's this element of needing to be the observer of your own thoughts and your own feelings. If you can change your thoughts, you can change the way you feel about that particular situation. Yeah. And one of the ways strategically to change that is through your breathing and awareness. And then park it, make the choice to be fully present with that person and pick it up afterwards.
Okay. It's interesting, like as you were saying that earlier, I was reminiscing of some times where I took a work situation to home and might have had a snap at one of the children or my partner, and it's just one of those things where you just need to, like, it's easy on hindsight, hard in the moment. But if I can switch gears and bring it back to the sales world, or even in the business world, when we look at meeting someone for the first time, and this goes back to your listening component, building rapport fast is one of those skills that we try and work on and master. And you talk about this a lot in your, I believe it's the 5 levels of listening. So I'd love to dive deeper into that, understand that, and then how can I apply that to my daily routine?
So Oscar Trimboli actually has written a book and has lots of podcasts on it. I really encourage anyone to investigate and learn a bit more about it. But it's really looking at how, at a very surface level, which is what most of us do. I think we live in a world where we've got phones, we've got multiple competing priorities. We're always thinking about lots of different things. Technology's been great, but obviously it creates other challenges as well. So there's listening in terms of what people are saying and how present you actually are. There's listening to respond, which a lot of people do. There's listening. So often in a sales conversation, for example, you might be having a conversation with someone and they start talking about their challenges or what they're going through, and within the first few minutes we go, oh yes, I've had someone that's had that before. I know what the solution is. And we do this with our family and friends as well, and start trying to offer advice. And we're offering advice or solutions based on our own experiences, not on the unique needs and challenges and situation of the other person. And then the other part is, most of us listen with our ears, and often we're not fully listening, we're not fully present. And there's very few people that genuinely will sit and hold the space for you to talk and come at that with a curiosity and a real genuine interest around, I want to learn about you. I want to hear what you've got to say. I want to not just hear what you have to say, but feel it. And so when you genuinely sit across from somebody and you're practicing listening with your ears and your eyes, you can start to pick up where their words and their body language don't match.
Yep.
And so in the context of sales, where a customer might be saying, that sounds great, but I need to go away and think about it. you can see maybe there's something they're a little bit uncomfortable with. So they're saying one thing, but their body language is maybe telling you something else.
So that's that lack of congruence in the communication structure, right?
Yeah. And so if you even turned off the sound and you sat and watched people and their body language, I could watch a conversation of the two of you, and even without hearing, I'd be able to see the type of conversation and the emotions and the interaction.
I'd love to break that down, because I think, again, for a lot of us in selling, and you're right, like I know early in my career I was taught communication, the Albert Mirabin's communication model, right? 55% of communication is non-verbal, and then you've got the intonation piece. But I'd love for you to sort of break this down for us, like how the importance of the non-verbal communication in understanding how is that connected to rapport, because all this is connected to NLP, right? So can you walk us through some things that we should be looking out for when we're initially meeting someone for the first time? What's an indication that they might not be comfortable, or there's a level of anxiety or relationship tension might be high that's stopping us moving into the zone of influence?
So I would look at both, and I can share a little bit with you about both. So if we start with the verbal, so some of the things that are actually quite easy to pick up, because we don't always have people face to face. So if you're on the phone, you can pick this up as well.
Yep.
So generally we're motivated to reduce, risk and seek reward. So part of the linguistics piece is you can actually hear when people speak. Some people, when you're talking to them about a product or a service, or even in, personal relationships, I'll say, I really want to make sure this doesn't happen, and I just don't want to get into a situation where, and I want to avoid, and I want to minimize, and you can actually hear it in the language that they use, that they are really trying to make sure that whatever the solution is or whatever the situation is, that bad things don't happen.
Yeah.
Then there'll be other people that will speak more about, I really want to go here, and I want to do this, and I want to create X solution that enables me to do this and creates the possibility that my family can do that, and solves these problems and leads to, so they're all move towards type language. So you pick up, if you're really listening for those, you can start to hear those. The other things that you can hear are people tend to be more thinking or feeling. So if I say to you, Luigi, what are your thoughts on X? You might say, I'm not sure, but I feel like, ABC. And, Dave, you might be the same or different. People can do both, but generally people will have a stronger preference towards one or the other. So we can pick up some of those cues, and then the opportunity for us is then to adapt our language to what the other person's using. So that instantly tends to build rapport. It also means that when we're, fast forward a little bit when it comes to overcoming objections, we can pace out their objections and help overcome their objections through aligning the language. So Luigi, you mentioned that you want to avoid the chances of X, Y, and Z happening. Well, if we did this, that could help reduce, A, B, and C, and mitigate 1, 2, 3. And sometimes if we don't pick up straight away on those, you can use a combination of both. So how this product or service might help you is through reducing the chances of A, B, and C happening, and increasing the possibility that you will achieve 1, 2, 3. So we can use those.
Okay, so we've picked up the verbal component. So the verbal component of hearing what they're saying, and then trying to make sure that we're addressing it in some form of the conversation. But what about the body language? What if they're saying things to you that you think are like, okay, well, I'm on the right path here. They're saying the right thing. But if I'm not conscious about how they're not presenting is probably the wrong word, but how they're sitting, like what are the things that you look for to sort of ensure that their body is also aligned with what they're saying?
So when we feel happy, positive, things are going well, there's what we call the horizon. So when you're, if you wake up and it's sunny and you go outside and you go for a walk, we tend to look up, and we feel good. And so people's body language, even just where they're looking, so up or, maintaining eye level or up. Often when people are worried or concerned about things, you'll see their shoulders move and they hunch in, or they're
Yep.
uncomfortable. So there's some of the things that we see. Obviously, things like fidgeting, their eye patterns. So you can follow people's eye patterns around where they're looking and get a sense as to that. Also, you'll see people lean towards you or lean away from you. So really, really simple things, but even just subtle shifts. Like if I say something to you, so I can see Luigi's maybe a little bit more so than yourself, Dave, but I can see when I say things, I can see the way your eyes move. I can see you when you're processing something that I'm saying. You might look up and your head shifts slightly to one side, and your eyes narrow a little bit, and I can see that you could ask me a question.
Right?
Yeah, because I can see the thought process.
It hurts when he does think.
And so when you're having a conversation with someone, you will see really subtle physical shifts in their shoulders, in their chest, in their eyes, their face, that either you can tell either looks positive, concerned, or unsure.
So how can I, again, in a sales context, meeting somebody and trying to, obviously, Stephen Covey talks about the speed to trust, right? So we want to increase that speed to trust. From an NLP perspective, are there things that I can do that would potentially lead the other person to feel more comfortable with me so they feel more open to talk? Like, can you maybe share a few tactics that someone listening to this would be like, I'm going to execute this now to improve how I build rapport with prospects?
So 2 things that stand out for me when you say that. One is I'm always, particularly in NLP, and this is why sometimes NLP gets a bit of a bad rap.
Yeah.
Trusting that you absolutely believe that the product or service that you're offering the person is the right thing for them. You're not trying to push something onto somebody that they don't want or don't need. So it's stepping away from manipulating to, I'm authentic and I genuinely care about you and I want to understand what's going on for you so that I can help you solve for that. So the intention is first thing, and being authentic within yourself. And then the other piece is when you meet somebody, so whether you already have some initial information on them or, however you've got the data that you've got, one of the things that we can do, which is key strategy in NLP, is thinking about the global context and what's relevant for that particular person. So we can anticipate some of these things in advance, even if we don't know a huge amount. But if you do a little bit of research, you can think about, well, what's maybe happening more broadly that's going to impact them and their business. So we can start thinking about that and then help us to put together what might be some challenges that they'd be facing, what might be some opportunities, and then anticipate some objections that they might have. So start thinking about, before you even get there, what they might be thinking.
Yep.
So as you go through and talk about, perhaps the impact of technology and how all of these things might directly impact their business. And again, using language that it's not definitive. So often, this could be a challenge for you, or I'm wondering if this is a challenge for you. So using language that is open and not, I know this is a challenge for you, because if there's any small amount of doubt, people straight away get defensive. Like you're always late to work. If there's even once that they haven't been late, people will, it impacts credibility and rapport. So being able to use language that's inclusive and believable, and then really asking good questions, playing the role of coach. So being fully present, asking questions, seeking to understand is a really critical part in NLP. And I think a lot of people talk about NLP as influencing and persuading people, but actually the really key part is I'm seeking to understand, I'm curious, I want to know what's going on for you so that I can help understand your limiting beliefs or what your values are or potential areas that you're not going to be comfortable with, so that I can help see how this might be a good solution for you and work with you through that.
So, and I'll let Dave ask something just because I'm getting so intrigued.
That's all right, I'm still here.
Right? But again, if I take the sales context away completely, and I'm not selling a product or service, I'm just trying to. I really want to build rapport with this individual. And I know that you mentioned, it's about it's seeking to listen to understand versus respond. One of those the parts of the listening structure, but there is an element that I'd love for you to share around the mirroring techniques, the pacing, the shifting body. How does that all fit into NLP and one's ability to build rapport and trust with somebody else?
I guess there's a bit of neuroscience behind it as well around the mirror neurons and we're wired for connection, and that element's actually really important to us. We want to do business with people that we like and that we connect with, and obviously have any relationships with people that we trust. Trust is obviously really essential. So you can actually see when even with animals, where the way that they copy each other and where there is that trust, people will mirror each other's behavior and also even start having the same thought processes. So some of the really simple things that you can do are to try and match, understand the tone, the language, leaning in. It's almost like this little bit of push-pull. Like you don't want to, if you come on too strong with somebody in any type of relationship, they generally tend to run away. And then the same thing. So you want to have this nice flow where you're understanding, it's genuine, you get a sense of the person, you can see how comfortable they are, and people will generally lean in more towards you when they are comfortable. And and I think you're naturally very good at this, both of you, where you ask questions and you're asking questions in service of the person. You have a genuine curiosity and you want to learn and understand. And again, that you're then asking more questions that are in service of them, and the tone in which you do it is matching theirs. So I think they're really little things, but also when you're doing that you're not just asking lots and lots and lots of questions.
As this conversation's been playing out, I've been thinking, I can see NLP similar to like a gym, where I got to continually go to the gym, I got to continually exercise, become better and better at it. For someone who this is really attractive to, how does one start to begin their journey with NLP and then progress to mastering it in their world? Is it something that I need to spend X amount of time per day, per week? Are there 2 to 3 things I need to work on during those times that I'm focused on practicing NLP in my daily life? I'm keen to know, is there a framework that I should follow in this space?
So what I would say is it's definitely worth everybody getting a basic understanding, and the reason for that is it's helpful for yourself. So I guess start with yourself, the self-mastery piece, understanding that everything we do is a process. So being happy is a process. People, when they say I've got anxiety, often these are all processes. So everything that we do is a process. So developing that deeper understanding within yourself is helpful, because then you can be really intentional about the way that you communicate and the impact that you want to have. And reframing your own beliefs can be super helpful. So I would start with a basic level, or there's obviously different levels. So I'd start with a basic level understanding. There's lots of different courses that you can do. I think finding a reputable provider is obviously important. Start with the basics, and then you then move into the next level around understanding how to structure your communications and interactions with others. So all of your communication, to your point, there are lots of different elements to learn. So it's not just a couple of things. There is a lot to it. But what you can do, and there's really simple ways that you can use it around structuring your emails, structuring your general conversations, practicing talking to each other, practicing like your framing of conversations and the pacing and the leading and the overcoming objections and creating hooks. These are all things that we do all the time. We're having all of these interactions. So there's an opportunity to be really intentional about designing those. And then even things like the language that we use. So you can practice listening to your kids or to your partner or to your family and friends or people that you work with. So you start becoming more and more aware of it, and that enables you to then use it more intentionally. Within a professional environment, I really encourage teams to use it in their team meetings or different interactions, or in their, whether you have your coaching conversations, so that people are getting feedback and learning from each other. And I think the other piece is then part of this is once you do develop those skills, you want to make sure that in the sales context that you don't have multiple people in your team asking the same kinds of questions or using exactly the same techniques with people, because I think that's a piece that makes people feel uncomfortable.
Yeah, and just something that you said as well, I want to go back, the reframing piece. You mentioned sometimes you have to reframe some of your beliefs.
We all have beliefs. We think they're beliefs.
Yeah.
And obviously the way that we've grown up and the experience that we've had, what we've been exposed to, shapes our mental models. And so we all tend to operate at the level of resource that we have. So I currently do this process. So let's say something, so a particular type of challenge, how I deal with that challenge will be based on the internal models and processes that I'm currently running.
So let's take the deal one. Sorry to cut you off, but let's take I've just lost a deal, right? Because that's a common one. If you're in sales, you're losing lots of deals if you're winning. Can we reframe the belief around losing deals?
Okay, so can we play this out?
Yeah, let's do it.
All right, so you've lost the deal. What are you telling yourself?
Oh, it depends. It depends how big the deal is.
Crap, good. Should be in sales.
I think earlier in my career more, it's like I should have done this. I go to the should haves. I'm like, I didn't give it enough attention, or I allowed too much time between interactions. Like I start to dissect and think about where was the hole, where was the red flag that I didn't bridge. Yeah, that's my process. Whenever I lose a deal, I look at what I should have done differently. Enough?
Yeah.
Interrogate me further.
Yeah. So you're thinking I should have.
I should have. It's my first thing. I should have.
Okay. What other thoughts are you having?
Sometimes I'll be like, because I didn't have enough time. I didn't do this. I was meant to do X and I didn't do it. I kind of start to.
It's self-blame based on what you think you've missed steps.
Yeah, because I don't blame anybody else. When a deal doesn't get to a point of success, for me, there's nobody else to blame in the deal but me.
I'll blame you too when we lose.
So, well, I close all the deals in my business. So, if you sold anything, you could lose some deals anyway. So that's my process of what happens when I lose a deal. That's where I go.
And what do you tell yourself is the potential outcome of you losing the deal?
As in?
The consequence. What do you see as a consequence?
If I've lost a deal?
Yeah.
It's missed revenue. I'm like, to be honest, this is really selfish. And it's more of now I need to get another one across the line. Like I've invested time. For me, it's not about, I'll always back myself to win in selling, right? I'm not one that will ever, this is not about me, but I'm kind of okay. Like I can pick up another deal tomorrow, but it's more of I've invested time, and time for me is a very valuable resource. Yeah, because I don't have a lot of spare time, or I choose to do certain things with my time. So if I lose a deal, it's more so now I've got to work on another one at the bottom of the funnel, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So when I hear you say that, some of the things that come to mind for me, so the should have, and we do this with other people as well, should have like more that definitive language.
Yeah.
And so if we look at, well, how, like what sort of happened there and explore it, it's there's a process that you're running there around, I should have done this, I should have done that. You're blaming yourself.
Yeah.
And so reframing that to, okay, it's fallen through. What can I learn from this? What are the opportunities in this? How can I seek to understand, are there things that I could have done differently that I can take for next time?
Yeah.
So there's definitely a reframing piece to have there, but also what's the process that you're running at that particular time.
I like
so
that.
We will, sometimes it's catastrophizing. So this always happens to me, and so there's a series of different processes that we run, and understanding what your own are. And this is why the self-mastery piece is important, because when you start to understand, we tend to have these frequent processes that we run and internal models and beliefs. Once we start to understand our own and what we're running, you're like, I'm doing that again. I'm doing that again. I'm telling myself, I should have done this. I'm doing that again. Or this is happening and I'm doing it again. And so you can start to catch yourself and literally reframe in the moment. And so can I ask you another couple of quick questions?
Sure.
So when that happens, can I ask you to think of, you don't have to share the example, can I ask you to think of an example where you've done that, where that's happened, and then you've told where you've lost a deal. So you've got a couple. But if you pick one in particular and visualize it. So when you put yourself back there and you're telling yourself, I should have done these things, what's the feeling that you have? Like, what are you feeling?
Oh, inside?
Yeah.
Definitely frustration.
Mm-hmm.
It's definitely I definitely get that sense of self-frustration. Like, this has happened. And a little bit of regret that I didn't take more time, or I wasn't, careful enough in the way that I manage the situation. So it's definitely a frustration piece. I feel that frustration internally.
Where do you feel it?
Oh, depends. It depends. Usually my stomach. Like I'm sort of and then that's the cause of distraction, right? Then I'm and then I'll think about it. I ruminate about it and kind of play it in my head on, if I played this a bit differently, if I didn't this, and then and that frustration, and he knows it because I'll shake my head when I'm thinking about it. I'm actually very I'll actually think about it and I'll be like,
I can pick up on it a lot when something hasn't gone his way and we're on a separate call, because it's just those little visual cues that you mentioned earlier that you do.
Yeah, Mark picks it up as well. One of our friends, Mark Morano, he picks it up as well. He'd be talking to me and I'd be shaking my head. He'd be like, what happened? And I'm like, oh, nothing. Right, because that's the process that I go through. Yeah.
And so that whole thing is a process.
Yeah.
That's I lost this deal, or the deal fell through, and now I'm running I should have, could have, regret process. And so physically, for you to do that, so you have to kind of visualize it, to keep ruminating, to keep picturing it, and every time you picture it, you feel it. You have the feelings associated with it, and then you shake your head and you do all these, so you run that process each time.
Yeah.
So what we then try and do is get you to break that process, find something that's more useful, and start running that new process.
Okay, so reframe. And I liked what you said earlier. It's about rewording it as well, right?
Yeah.
Not looking at it I should have. It's the opportunity for me next time is, what I would like to do differently is X.
Yeah. Right. And what's your ideal scenario when that happens? So if I can get you to visualize, fast forward to future state, visualize your ideal scenario, or, both when things are going well and if something doesn't go through, well, how would you like that to be?
Yeah.
And then create that picture and mental model, and then we get your, thoughts and everything else, your processes to match that.